We are back on the Zero Hour with a guest that needs no introduction but is going to get a brief one anyway. Cenk Uygur is head of the Young Turks, the independent multimedia empire with 1 billion global video views and 30 million confirmed views a month, knocking it out of the park right and left. Expert on independent media, a guy I've known for many years, been on his show for many years. Now I got a show of my own. Cenk, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem, man. Love being on here. How you doing, brother?
Well, we love having you. And I guess my first question, I want to talk, well, we got a little less than 10 minutes. Usually we have an hour together on the panel. But first question, okay, now I've followed your example and jumped into the independent media world. Am I out of my mind?
Yes, but in a good way. Look, Richard, the good news online is that we own it, meaning that progressives are obliterating conservatives online. It's not even close. So you're in the right ballpark, and I know how smart you are, and that's why we have you on the show all the time. So I think you're going to be in great shape.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I do have to say, on our premiere weekend, we were the #1 downloaded podcast on iTunes. We beat them all. So we still got a long way to go, but we're doing something right. But tell me, why do you think we need an independent media? Why do we need guys out there talking who aren't connected with, whether it's the massive right-wing media or the smaller but still somewhat partisan, let's say Democratic-oriented media? And you know who we're talking about there. So why do we need an independent progressive media at all?
Right. Well, for a number of reasons, the establishment press has gotten completely co-opted by the powerful, basically, the establishment, which they were a part of. So it's a little bit unsurprising. Now, you could have MSNBC on the Democratic side, you could have Fox News on the Republican side, you'd have CNN on both sides. But what you're not going to have is someone saying, hey, listen, we think this system is fundamentally corrupt. It's not that the Republicans are bad guys and Democrats are bad guys, as the different channels would claim. It's that they're institutionally corrupt. They're systematically and systemically corrupt. And it's because they get paid to be, to do the bidding of their donors. That's the system that we've set up. So you need independent media to say that. Part of the reason that television isn't going to say that is because billions of dollars of that corruption, the money in politics, goes to television ads. That's their golden calf, and they're not going to slay that.
And do you think that's part of the reason why? I mean, I don't want you, I don't want you as your friend to spend the rest of your life rehashing your MSNBC experience, but do you think that's one of the reasons why that hasn't turned out to be the progressive outlet? I mean, there's some good programming there, but the progressive outlet that people had hoped it would be, is that why it didn't work for you, why you needed to go off on your own?
I really need people to understand that there aren't very many actual smoke-filled room conspiracies. Some, but it's really, really rare, right? What the system is brilliant. All you do is you set up certain rules to provide certain incentives and disincentives. So the way that applies to me at MSNBC is I'm not sure there was ever a discussion in the higher echelons of NBC News where they said, well, we get money in politics, and that mainly goes to NBC and, our fellow cohorts on television here. Cenk argues against that, so let's remove them. I don't think that's the way that it works. It's much more of a subtle, hey, you know what, don't rock the boat here. And people in Washington aren't, like literally, as they said to me at MSNBC, the people in Washington are not happy with your tone. And then you have to think, why aren't they happy with my tone? And Larry Summers apparently told Elizabeth Warren, number one rule of being an insider is that you don't criticize other insiders. And all of that goes to reinforcing the system where, hey, we're all getting paid here. We're all getting incredibly rich. Shush. Don't talk about that. And if you do, well, then you're being impolite. You're using the wrong tones. And these are the code words that are used to move out the troublemakers and promote the people who don't rock the boat and who largely go along to get along.
I love that you said that for a couple reasons. One is that, what you're saying, it's not a conspiracy. We're not, naive about this, but it's what Disraeli called a conspiracy of shared values and shared interests and all that. It's just soft, and that's why when people get accused of it being a conspiracy, they get all huffy because they know that they're not meeting in smoke-filled rooms and they don't get how this social stuff affects them. But the other reason why it really struck me when you were talking now is that a very, very distinguished media person was speaking about me to different powerful folks in Washington, and he said, Richard Eskow, I don't know what it is, he just makes, he said he kept getting this compliment, this statement, Eskow just makes me uncomfortable. And he said, by the way, that means you're doing your job. But to a lot of people, they don't want to be uncomfortable. Isn't our job to make comfortable people uncomfortable?
Well, that was what it used to be, and that's what it's supposed to be, but they've forgotten that completely and utterly. So look at the guys that we use on the Young Turks. David Sirota. One place after another that he goes, he makes people uncomfortable. And that's why he's got issues with the establishment, and that's why we love him. Same thing goes for you. Same thing goes for the late Michael Hastings, who's a contributor to our show. These are the guys who are the watchdogs. The same thing for Glenn Greenwald, who was a very frequent guest on our show, right? We're supposed to make him uncomfortable. We're supposed to be the watchdogs, not the lapdogs. But look, Richard, the great thing about this is that their system is now failing. It's in free fall, and we're helping to push it on its way down, nudging it off that cliff. And now, today, there was a Wall Street Journal article written with a big headline that says, Young Turks crushing CNN and ABC on YouTube, right? So at some point, they're going to get the memo. And in fact, they're in the middle of getting it right now. Hey, maybe we ought to turn around. It turns out the audience doesn't like what we're selling. They like what these guys are saying, which is the truth.
Well, and that's I'm delighted to hear that. And by the way, speaking of challenging, you've got the Wolf Pack, and the Wolf Pack is trying to get money out of politics with the constitutional amendment. There's been a sit-in up in Sacramento with the laws around this very issue. How's that going? Because I think if we don't get the money out of politics, then we can't get the money out of all the things that surround politics, whether it's TV or academics or economics chairs or the Brookings Institution, whatever it is. How do we keep that fight going? You guys have been doing great work.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm the host of the Young Turks, which is a flagship show, of course, for the TYT network. I'm the CEO of the network. So I decided to give myself a third job because I wasn't busy enough, and start Wolfpack. The reason I did that is because we have to do it. If we don't fight back, who's going to do it, right? And I can't do a show in good conscience to tell you things are going to be all right when I know for a fact that if we don't get money out of politics, things are not going to be all right. That this has destroyed our democracy starting in 1978 because of a couple of Supreme Court decisions well before Citizens United. And people think it's not possible. One, every generation of Americans has gotten a constitutional amendment except ours, so we can do it, we must do it. Second of all, there was a golden age of progressivism for about 40, 50 years in this country, starting with FDR all the way through 78.
Cenk, we only got about 30 seconds, and since you taught me about hard stops, I'm sorry to do that to you, but where can people go to learn more about this stuff?
wolf-pack.com. We have a plan, and we're already executing that plan. We've already passed it in Vermont and California. wolf-pack.com. Become part of the solution.
Well, thanks so much for doing that. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for all the great work. Cenk, Uygur, the Young Turks, you are the man. We're glad to have you on the Zero Hour.
Thank you, RJ.
I am Richard RJ Eskow, and we will be right back after this. This is the Zero Hour.